Hello, everybody. I got on here just a little bit too soon. I didn't do our little intro, but let me do that. And there we are. I try so hard to be professional with this live stream thing. I try to get the music going so that when the music ends, there I am, but it doesn't. It I always mess that up. But anyway, welcome everybody. It's good to see y'all out there. Walker, welcome to the live stream. Gilbert or Fred, welcome to the live stream. We've got 5 people out there, and if you'll say hello in the chat room, I will say hello to you. If you've never been here before, anybody out there? Hey, Frank. If you've never been here before, or if you're a person in the future who's watching this and just kind of found it on YouTube, what this is a podcast called Beyond Belief Sobriety, and it's also a community. And we do live streams once a week, and we're kind of geared towards people who are seeking or who have found a secular path to recovery. So, in other words, the God stuff kind of is an issue. Hey, Gabe, good to see you. Well, and every week we live stream, and I have a co host. Her name is Mary, and we will either have a topic or we will have a guest. And today we have a guest who she will be introducing. But let me bring Mary out now. And there she is. Pop. Boy. Bang. Hey, Mary.
Hey, John. Hey, everybody. Glad y'all are here.
And how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking at the birds and the squirrels in the bird feeder, and I'm talking to you. So life is good right now.
Good. And thank you for inviting this guest today. It makes my life easy. I'm normally a little bit stressed about these live streams, but now we'll let Jeff take all that stress away, and I'll just kind of kick back, have some coffee, listen to him, and maybe grill him with some questions later on. That's about all I got to do.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm
thanks.
having my coffee too. And
Good.
so I wanted to hear my friend Jeff's story. We both live in Savannah, and he's a member of my group. And I have noticed that Jeff is a very well, besides being I'm just going to like tell you how I really feel. Like he's a fabulous, wonderful, loving, strong leader, friend, and he does a lot of good work for people in recovery. And I always listen to what he has to say, and he's always honest and always loving. And I really appreciate where he's gotten to in his recovery so that he can be there for others. And just love him. And I just wanted an opportunity to hear his story. I've heard snippets of it. I haven't heard the whole kit and caboodle. And so I just wanted to hear it today. And I asked if he would be on the podcast, and he said, sure.
Well, great. Well, wonderful. We're going to bring him out now, and I'm glad that you invited somebody that you like. One of these days, we're going to have to invite someone we don't like, just for the hell of it. But anyway,
Oh, I got a list of those people.
let's bring Jeff out. Hey, Jeff. Good to see you.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Hey.
Hey Mary.
Hey. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm grateful to do it. Thank you for asking me.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
So Jeff, what we'll do, this is kind of an interactive deal. So while you talk, there will be people chatting in the live chat on YouTube and Facebook, and they might ask you questions or whatever, or just chat in general. But we'll let you share your story, and then we'll just kind of have a conversation flow from there. So we might ask you some questions, or maybe just relate to you a little bit.
I love it. That's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer that to having to get up and own the podium for 40 minutes. It's really nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the floor is yours, sir. So please have at it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you, John. I didn't get to say hi, and thank you. So I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, so I'll just start from the beginning. My name is Jeff. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 18th of 2017. That is not my first sobriety date, but it is my current one. I have a sponsor that I interact with regularly. I sponsor guys in the program. I have a home group. I have a service position in that home group. And really, AA, sobriety, recovery is the lotus from like what the rest of my life blooms from. And I have to keep it that way. I've tried before to do it other ways, and it doesn't work for me. So you know, that's kind of how it is for me today in terms of like what my priority system looks like. I'm engaged to a wonderful woman who she's okay with me sharing is also a member of our fellowship. We don't have any real children yet, but we have multiple fur babies who we treat as our own children. And yeah, we live here in Savannah, and I work in the SUD space, and she's a personal trainer and yoga instructor, and we just try to be active members of the recovery community and help people, and it's a great thing. And you know, I came to that place like now as a 42-year-old man through like a lot of trial and tribulation, like all of us that end up here. I grew up in Maryland. My father was an Army intelligence officer and worked for NSA. My mother was an Army nurse. Alcoholism is in my family. My father is alcoholic. He passed away in August of this past year. And interestingly enough, I'll share this. I was just up visiting my mom about 3 weeks ago, and she showed me a bunch of composition books that he had written in over the years. It was really interesting to read through and see these entries from him all the way back to like 1992, where he says, you know, I haven't had a drink in a month and I feel so good and things are really moving in the right direction. And then you fast forward to July 10th, 1996. I've had a drink in 2 weeks and everything feels so good. I'm so happy. I feel great this way. I'm going to keep this up. March 4th, 1998. Haven't had a drink in 10 days and it's so good. And it just reminded me of what that's like. That pain and that inability to get to the other side of this thing. And, you know, we all know what it looks like, you know, when you know, I can't live with or without the drink or the drug. That's when it's like really torturous. And, you know, somehow cathartic to see that in his writing. So I did grow up in a good home, though. There was never, I was loved. I have an older sister who's married. She has 5 children. She's not alcoholic. She can have a bottle of wine in her refrigerator for 6 weeks and take 2 sips of it, and I don't understand that. But God bless her for it. And, you know, like, if you ask growing up who was the good kid or bad kid, I was always the golden child, you know. I was the one who got good grades in school. I was a good athlete. I did community service. I mean, all the right things. She was the one who was staying out late, burning cigarette holes in the seats of the Bronco, you know, all that stuff. But like, funny how when we grow into our full human selves, the restlessness, irritability, and discontent that I felt inside just became too much for me to bear, and I found the solution to it in drugs and alcohol. And that really started for me at 13 is when I first drank, and it was everything I was looking for. You know, I am not atypical. I've not heard many people speak in meetings or in rooms and share the fact that, like, they felt like they didn't fit in when they were growing up. They felt like they didn't belong, felt like an outcast. And that was my story, too.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I'm getting some feedback on your mic.
Okay.
Can you just see if it's, I don't know, John, you're more techy.
No, you're right, Mary, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, I was getting some feedback from you there, Jeff.
Like staticky?
Mhm.
How would he fix that?
I don't know.
Okay, let's see. All right, talk, Jeff. Let's see.
How about now?
Do it. Say
You know,
something.
you might want to use earbuds too, if you have any.
I do. Let me go grab them.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll chat while you're doing that.
Sure.
All right. We'll
Okay.
take care. We'll get Jeff back here on us here real soon. Didn't have a chance, but anyway, yeah. So he'll get that straightened out.
I wasn't sure if it was just my headset.
Nah, I could have interrupted him sooner. I probably should have, but yeah, you're right. I think what it is possibly without wearing the earbuds, he's having some sound coming through his speakers. So his own voice perhaps is coming through in some way and reverberating.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because I know when I was talking to him, I would hear that. So anyway, just little technical stuff out there, guys. So,
right. Well, in the meantime, let's say hi to Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Johanna. Gabriel. John B.
Good to see you guys.
And Gilbert.
I think Jeff's coming back now with his headphones.
I do. I have earbuds in now. How's that?
Oh, okay. Boy, I'm still hearing that. It's
static. Not as bad though, I don't think. Let's hear. Say something else, Jeff.
Hello.
Oh no, I think it made it worse. What do you think?
I don't know. I think we'll just have to go with it though.
Yeah, just go with it. It's not that bad. It's just static a little bit.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
Is it
It's
better
not,
without the headphones or with?
It doesn't matter.
we'll try. Just put one ear in and then talk again and let me see.
Okay.
We can do a comparison. And
Okay,
y'all
how
out
about-
there that are okay, go.
How about now?
That's good. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's
good.
better.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm on my
No.
phone. I wanted to bring it up on my laptop, but when I went to access the site, it wouldn't allow me in. So
That's okay.
That's
Okay.
better though. That's better.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying that when you didn't think many people, you've heard it a lot in the rooms when you're 13, you feel like you didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
I think that's a typical story for people like us. Anyway, so yeah, so I drank the first time at 13 and really kind of like I had this idea that I found a solution in alcohol and drugs. It was great. I loved everything about it, but I also kind of realized that I thought I was going to be able to achieve enough externally that I could arrest the internal discontent I had, right? That this would be the solution until I had all the pieces of life in place appropriately materially, that then I wouldn't hate myself anymore.
Right.
And so I set out to try to do that. And, we'll just fast forward because I just don't like spending a ton of time in the mess. It's not productive. Fast forward to being 22 years old. I had graduated from college. I had my dream job. And, sometimes I'll share what these things are. And I just want to preempt sharing them because I am going to hear that, like, there is no attachment for me in terms of ego or like, I don't find myself, I'm not elevating myself by sharing these specifics, but I just want to say that, like, I think it can be useful in settings like this to share them. So, I graduated from an Ivy League school, Penn, with a triple major in political science, philosophy, and economics. I won the President's Award for Community Service. I had been drafted in the third round by the New York Giants. And had signed my contract with them. And I remember coming home from practice one day and sitting down and like looking kind of at these external things. This is the things I set, that once I got these things, everything would be okay. And I was still miserable. And I just went, oh my gosh, like what now? And I think that happens for all of us at one point or another, right? Where we're like seeking the fulfillment in anything but clearing up the internal space. I want it always to be the easier, softer way. And so I just think it was a little bit earlier for me at 22 to kind of have the recognition that, like, oh, this is not going to work. This is not it. But I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what peace and serenity were. Those words were foreign. Let alone some conception of like being able to achieve those without drugs and alcohol. And so I spent the next 4 years, the entirety of my playing career in the NFL, really in the worst state I was ever in up to that point with my disease. And I had a spinal fusion at 26 and retired and got sent to treatment 2 months later because I was overdosing regularly and got sober for the first time back in 2006. And I bought in. I believed what was being said. It was an interesting, now I'll say this, I did find it a little difficult early on. I was in North Louisiana where I got sober. So the way the fellowship looks there is the way you would expect it to look in, and that's fine for some people, but I wasn't really, I wasn't loving that piece of it. But I moved out to Los Angeles after about 5 years to pursue a master's degree. And somehow I got into acting and stunt work, which was a blast. And again, like at this time, I really felt like I was doing the things that were required of me as an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and like doing the things to maintain my sobriety and my recovery. Fast forward another couple of years, I had had a knee injury, and doing like 30-foot falls down elevator shafts and like getting beat up by Wonder Woman and all this stuff is like not necessarily good for the physical body. And I ended up going to a doctor finally, and he was like, look, you need a total knee replacement in your right knee. And I went, oh boy, because I knew what that meant. And really interesting, I don't think I've ever said this out loud, or the thought has come to me in sharing this, but I think in the midst of that, I had that paradoxical thing that occurs oftentimes where I, on one side was like, oh no, and on the other side was like, oh awesome, I get a free one. And so I went back to Maryland, where I was from, to have the knee replacement surgery because I knew it was going to be arduous and I wanted to be close to family. And I had, my parents get a safe to put what I knew I was going to get discharged with pain meds after knee replacement surgery. Got a safe to put those in so I didn't have easy access. And, but I was out externally doing the things that I was supposed to be doing, but inside I was already out there. I had already relapsed because I had already said to myself, here we go. Like I get a free one. And even that conception of it is huge red flag that I was unwilling to look at and really like unwilling to be honest about with anyone in my life, right? I'm at this place where I have 8 years of sobriety. So I think that I'm supposed to be Captain Recovery. Right? Like yeah. I'm the guy who helps guys. So I can't have a problem. I can't expose this, or my sponsor even, I can't tell him that this is going on. I'm like, I'm too far into the game to have these kind of thoughts and feelings. And that's such a lie. Yeah. And I really try to express that to people, and I hope everyone listening will hear that. Like, do not ever believe because we have any type of time in recovery that like we are arrested from our substance use disorders or our alcoholism, right? Like it doesn't die. And I think honesty is one of the things I prize most in anyone I relate to today, because it's the crux of everything. I don't care what you say. If it's your truth, I honor it, and I'm so grateful for it. And it's such an important thing to me. So I have the surgery, I wake up, I click the button, and I immediately feel the feelings. And I go, okay, here we go. And so I go home, and there's the meds are in the safe, and all I'm thinking about is how I can get some C4 to blow out the safe so I can get access to these pills. And I'm going, shoot, this is bad. So I go back to the doctor. I can't have these pills. Well, we'll give you fentanyl patches because that way you won't abuse those. And I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yes, give me those. And that it starts there for me. And I tell myself this story at that point that I have chronic pain issues and nobody would really understand those anyways. And I'm doing what's prescribed. So it's really not that big of a deal anyways. And, that is the hardest brick to put in the wall of me between my separation of myself and fourth dimension, right? Spirit, like truth, honesty, grace, all these things. I put that one brick in the wall, and then from there, time goes, and I'm not, I don't blow up immediately, or at least I didn't in that relapse. It was a very slow drip for me. It's a very slow fall down, and at each step along the way, my values, I fall further away from my values, from my morals, from the things I really believe, from my truth, from my connection to you and anyone else. And by the end of it, I have told myself enough stories that it makes sense for me to be driving to pick up large amounts of heroin for a trafficking operation so that I can get my personal use amount of the drugs for free, because that's how bad I need them, right? Mm-hmm. And that ends up with me being arrested in September 17th of 2017. I get wrapped up into a federal investigation that the stipulations of which are you can't tell anyone what's going on, you can't use or drink, and you can't change anything in your life. So that's September 18th of 2017. I get that message from the FBI and the DEA. And then I'm left to sit with, for the first time in 4 years, a mind not clouded by drugs and alcohol, and start swallowing the reality of what I have gotten myself into. And it's almost too much at that point, right? I mean, it's just too much for me. I cannot even fathom the fact that I have gotten to this place where this is the reality. And so for me at that time, it became this process of questioning whether I wanted to continue existing. And if I did, if that was going to be the case, finding a way to find some sense of internal peace and serenity in the midst of all this external calamity. And so I dove really hard into 11-step work in terms of meditation practice. And that for me was a huge shift in my life, really, because I had pretended to do it before, like a lot of us do, I think. You know, it's in the steps, but once we get down to, you know, step 11, and, you know, it just becomes continued through prayer and meditation. Well, cool, yeah, like I'll do some deep breaths when I need to. And it's like, wait a minute, dude, that's not it. Like, we're improving our conscious contact with a higher power through this work, right? Like through these things we're doing. And so I dove into that, and I think the fire was really hot under my butt, because it was like, I'm either going to end my life or I'm going to get some peace. And I found it, you know, and I just kept working at it. And, you know, it didn't change the circumstance of the fact that nobody in my life knew what was happening.
Wow.
That went on for July of 2019, July 23rd, I believe, was the day I was finally charged. So from September 18th of 2017 to the July of 2019, I was in a place where I knew that I was in a federal investigation, had relapsed, basically was just waiting for the other shoe to drop, but no one in my life knew anything about any of it. And so it was really like, gosh, I don't know. It was a strange time, you know, and when I look in hindsight, I'll say that the greatest thing that came out of that for me, because that's the only way any of this ever makes sense, right? Any of these struggles, trials, and tribulations we all go through, they only make sense if they can be useful as a tool to, you know, carry the message, really. And so for me in that space, the thing was like, it forced a presence on me that I didn't have before, where it was like, okay, where am I today? How can I be useful in this moment? And all the rest of it's out of my control. Like, I have no control over what happens tomorrow. But today, right now, this is where I am. This is what I'm doing, and how do I stay here? And so I'm incredibly grateful for that. It's really helped me. You know, it wasn't until February of 2022, and really since I've known Mary, it's been an ongoing thing. I've been waiting. I didn't get sentenced until February of 2022. So it was 4.5 years.
Wow.
From the time I was charged until I was finally sentenced. And when it started, it was looking like 11.5 to 13 years in federal prison. Then it was up to 4 years. And then when I got sentenced, I got 3 years probation. And, you know, in the middle of all that time, some really beautiful things happened. And you know, this is like the real deal with recovery for me is, I want to say, number one, I fell in love with this wonderful woman our relationship is honest and open and real. But I'll tell you this, it wasn't that way in the beginning, because for the first 1.5 years we were together, she didn't have any idea that I was involved in any of that. I had to come home one day and sit her down on the couch and say, hey, there's something I need to tell you. Ooh, that's a whopper.
It's a big secret that you had to hold for that long.
Yeah. And I didn't know what the result of that was going to be, but, you know, she was great. She was incredible. You know, she just leaned into who she is, which is like, that's not the person I've ever known you to be. Who you were before doesn't really matter. and I'm going to stand by you. And thank God for that. And I had friends in sobriety that were the same way. People I'd known for over a decade at that point that said like, wow, what a terrible thing that you relapsed and this all happened. But like, so glad you're okay. So glad you're sober again. And like, what can we do to like help you move forward in your life? You know, because I got fired and, you know, sadly, it became a very public thing. There were just enough pieces in place in the story that it was juicy enough that in our wonderful cancel culture that we live in, it got run with pretty far. You know, Mike Pence had canceled a trip to this treatment center I worked at as a result of me being an employee there, and they had kind of kept that quiet. And so when I was finally charged, they could link those two things together. The fact that I had played professional sports, the fact that I worked in treatment, it just became a story that like, it was on CNN, you know, it was a nightmare. It was everywhere. And the, you know, I guess that it was a nightmare in the sense that like, because of the way it was presented, fair enough, I looked like Pablo Escobar. And it's like, look, you know, and I didn't have any legs to stand on to say anything, right? It's not like I could come out and be like, no, you don't understand. You know, it's like not the time. So you just kind of take those hits and you know, again, like that was another piece of kind of this washing away of a lot of inconsequential relationships, inconsequential ideas, thoughts. It just really got me down to kind of like baseline of, these are the important people in my life and relationships. These are the important things in my life. And if these are in place, then I don't care what John Williams from Denver, Colorado says in my Facebook Messenger when he writes that, you know, he hopes I die and all this. It doesn't matter. That's not mine. That's his. You know, one of those friends lived down here in Savannah and had opened up a program down here and offered me a job to come down and work down here. And so we moved down here in December of 2019 and have been here since in Savannah, and we love it and it's wonderful. And as I said, you know, my sentencing has been done now for a few months. And, you know, the thing I want to say before we like start getting into convo, there's a couple things that are really important for me to share. And I don't go through like my 12-step spiritual awakening because it just didn't happen that way for me, right? Like, I think it did at first, but I took it all back. So I feel dishonest that I get on here and I'm like, this is what 1, 2, 3, 4. It just hasn't been that way for me. It's been much more of a roller coaster of up and down and in and out and sideways and forwards and backwards and everything, right? But some of the gifts that like really sobriety and recovery have brought to me in particular are, you know, staying like right sized. You know, I've had no conception before I got sober of like whether I was 100 feet tall or whether I was 2 inches tall. You know, any room I walked in, it was either one or the other, and neither one were good. And it's so nice today to have a practice and a discipline in place that enables me to just be one among you and not feel like, you know, I need to be more than that. That's enough. That's a miracle, and it's enough. The second thing is like learning to shut up, which right now I've been talking for like 25 minutes, so it's probably not appropriate to, that's not, but really like in my life, in particular, my intimate relationships with people I love and care about the most, learning that I don't have to give my opinion has been incredibly valuable. Like, just keep your mouth closed, Jeff. And you know, my sponsor says this, and it's like a Viktor Frankl quote that's kind of like, I'll butcher it, but the basic thing is like the time between stimulus and response is the barometer of my spiritual condition. And like, there is no truer statement for me than that. It's like, if you step on my toe, the amount of time I can wait before I respond, number one, always gets better with more time. The longer I wait to say something, the better off I am. And you know, like, how willing am I to sit in that discomfort is like a big test of kind of where I'm at on the day. You know, coming to secular AA was a real incredible gift for me. And I want to tell you why. Because I am a guy who believes whatever path anyone chooses is their own path, and they should be allowed to walk it however they choose to walk it. But I always had an issue with the fact that we claim to be a spiritual program, but religious concepts come in. And to find a place where the basis of the thing is it's a spiritual program and we keep it there has been incredibly eye-opening and like just wonderful for me and my fiance to experience. You know, we live in Georgia. You can find a little bit similar to what I found in North Louisiana, in Georgia, and in any rooms anywhere, right? Where if you don't believe in a very particular deity, then you're not doing it the right way. And that's just not the deal. That's not what our literature says. That's not who we are. And I love being a part of what I think is a piece of AA that is like really aligned with what it's supposed to look like. And again, that's just my opinion, but it sure does feel good to go to a meeting and know that like no one's going to invite me to church. I'm just really grateful for that, unless it's the basement and you know, it's a meeting. So yeah, so things are good, you know, and I'm really grateful to spend the Saturday with you guys. I love what AA has done for my life. I love what every aspect of it is like. And, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I spend quiet time with me and spirit, at least 10 minutes. I read something spiritual, usually Beyond Belief or some type of spiritual reading. I'm in regular contact with my sponsor. Same with my sponsees. I had a guy text me yesterday. He made his last financial amends yesterday. Unbelievable. He's got 3 years now. And like that stuff is like, it just fills me in a way that nothing else does. So to be useful and to like do those disciplines, I tried for a long time to do those things because I wanted to stay sober. Like I wanted to stay sober, so I'm going to do these things. And I never had the fuel in the tank to keep doing them. When it started to become for me about doing those things so that I could be useful to other people, then it became something that I could do, because I still think I have like incredibly low self-esteem, right? Like I can put on a good front, but really inside, I think I'm useless. And I know I'm not, right? But the voices are still there. So when I make it about like being useful to you, I think you're amazing. So it's very easy for me to keep the energy source filled to do the things I need to do discipline-wise every day to be okay, so that I can be there for you. And that's really helped me in my journey and like my path. And you know, it hasn't been, like I said, a straight line, but I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. The lessons I've learned and the way I feel today I feel so good, and been through a lot of stuff. You know, I had to get Achilles surgery. I ruptured my Achilles and had to get that repaired 1.5 years ago. No opiates. You know, like I said, my dad's passed in this iteration of my sobriety, like made it through that fine, felt all the feelings, still do. And it's totally cool. Lost a job, got a job. Like all these things have happened in this iteration of the past 4.5 years of recovery for me. And like, there hasn't been a time yet where it's been like, I have to get away from this through the old tried and true drugs and alcohol. I absolutely know, as of today, tomorrow could be different, but as of today, I know no drink or drug is going to make any problem in my life anything but exponentially worse. And that's a gift. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Oh, there's your applause.
Yeah, nice applause track. Nice.
And we also already have a caller, and I'm pretty sure it's Fred from Virginia. So let's take his call. Is this Fred from Virginia?
Hello,
hey,
Fred from Virginia.
I thought so. What's up, Fred?
How you doing, John?
I'm doing okay, not bad.
Okay. Mary, nice to see you. And
thank you.
Jeff, you know, I have a pertinent thing for you. If you go back to basics in the program, think about the basics and go back to them, so you don't forget where you're coming from. Amen. You know, that's the whole thing. Now, people who slip or go back out, they have it twice as bad because they realize their mistake all over again. You know, and then they feel guilty and shame and all this kind of stuff because they didn't stick to their guns and, you know, stay abstinent from from the problem. But, go back to the basics and save yourself. You don't have to try to fix everything all at once. If you're having some problems with coping skills here or there, just take it one day at a time. That's all. It's one day at a time. So just, a long time ago, somebody told me yesterday is like a canceled check and tomorrow is like a promissory note. But today is cash money. So if you do a good job today, you get paid, right?
Right.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters, because people are going to tell you about your past, and they're going to say, well, you could do this or you could do that, but all you can do is what you can do today, right now. So don't get all caught up in everything. Be patient with yourself. After being hurt so much by your own self-destruction, it's very difficult to come back again and say, I'm okay. It sounds like you're doing good, and I hope that you can stick with it. And it's good to hear a young person come back like that and enjoy their day without drinking, and be able to say they got themselves a job, they're doing something, they accomplish, and they learn how to help others. That's wonderful.
Yep,
So,
he's doing great.
And
Yeah,
thank you,
I'm trying
Fred.
to let you know. Go back to the basics.
Got it.
If you can only do step one, do step one. If you can only do 1, 2, 3, do 1, 2, 3. When you get to John and Mary and my age, we base it on 10.
All
We
right.
base it on the 10 step. We try to stay on an even keel, and we don't let things throw us out of balance.
That's
Because
right.
all those things people are going to say, they're going to pull you down, or they're going to make you think you're great, and then you're going to fall. So stay in balance, keep some kind of balance, and go back to the basics if
All
you
right,
get
Fred.
stuck.
Well, thank you for your
Thank
call. I
you,
appreciate
Fred.
Thanks,
it.
Fred.
And the basics are always good for us all.
And I
call
I just
again,
want to
Fred.
say that was a great talk about your story. I was so happy to have heard the whole thing.
Thanks.
And thank you for sharing. What I got the most out of was the point, between keeping your mouth shut and opening your mouth, and the level of discomfort. I totally experience that on a regular basis. And I'm learning also, my biggest lesson now in my life, besides staying sober, is keeping my mouth shut. Because people don't need my opinion, and they don't, even if I have a better mousetrap, they don't need to hear about it. They can figure it out themselves. I don't have to rescue people. And, my opinions
Right.
don't really matter. And really, it's the sitting with the discomfort and not saying something is a lesson in and of itself of just how to deal with discomfort and not have to escape it. And that's what being sober is all about. And that is a meter for your level of serenity.
Right.
Everything you said was, you verbalized exactly mindsets, and I really appreciate the way you did that.
Thanks.
Sometimes just being with somebody is the best gift you can give them, and listening to them is what we really need. Jeff, I was going to ask you, I have a problem with meditation, huge problem. And I know it's good for me. It's like, I think about it like going to work out. I know that working out is good for me. And when I do it on a regular basis, it's easier to keep it going. But meditation is the same thing. I love it. It's good for me when I practice it on a regular basis. But once I stop, it's so hard to get back to it. How do you stay focused with meditating on a regular basis like that?
I really think that's so real. I'm with you. I'm very disciplined about working out too. And it's the same thing. Like, I'll get to the parking lot and sit in my car at the gym and just, I do not want, the last thing I want to do is go in there. It's like unbelievable, but I know it's good for me. But with this stuff, for me, with the fourth dimensional stuff, with spirit space, it's like, I just try to make it, like I said, about you and not me, right? Like, so and I don't mean to say that can come off as if I'm saying like, I'm meditating so that I'm so spiritually fit that when you come to me with some problem, I can help you. That's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, I try to make it about the fact that like my relationship to the God that I understand comes through you. And the clearer the channel is that I have to listen to that, the better off we're both going to be. And so like, I don't have any hacks for it. And I'll be honest with you, John, like it's some days I'm capable of sitting for 20 minutes. Some days I am fighting after 5 minutes to stay there. It's not perfect. It's just the practice of continually doing it. And it's like, I try to treat it like I do a meal. When I wake up in the morning, I'm hungry. I need to eat breakfast. Well, it's the same thing. Like the longer I do the practice of meditation, my spirit is hungry for that quiet when I get going in the day. And it just becomes habit.
That's the key, doing it enough for it to become habit. We have another caller, by the way, from Anaheim, California. Let's take it. And hello, Anaheim. How you doing? Hello. They may not be there. All right. You call back if you're there, and if not, who knows what that could have been. It could have been it could have been one of those spam calls. I don't know. Anyway, there we go. So yeah, I think that do something repetitiously for a while and it becomes a habit. A couple things I could identify with you is I also went through a period of time. I don't know if it was like at year 8 or year 5, but somewhere around there where I really thought that I had this thing down. And I think I was really unpleasant to be around in meetings because I was like Mr. AA. And I wonder, I think that is just kind of a natural thing that we go through. So did you kind of learn anything looking back at that time to kind of figure out what was going on? And
I think that's so real. It's like that 5 to 8 year period. Like once we get over 5 and between 5 and 10, like my sponsor's always like, we lose a lot of people in that space because it's like, you feel like you've gotten everything AA has to offer. Now it's your turn to like, just give it to everyone else. And like, aren't we the special one when we walk in the room? And so, it's funny. I'll share that. I was talking to I have a federal probation officer, obviously, and I have to call in 3 times a week and I'll have to go in and do drug tests for them. And so when that happens and I get called in, we'll have conversations. And for whatever reason, I don't know that he's had a lot of guys that are like super actively engaged in AA that have been in his care. So he often pokes me with questions about that stuff. And he was asking me about sponsorship the other day. And I said, well, I have 3 guys that I work with. One has 3 years, one is on his amends, and then one is in like the early stages where he's not even sure that, he's getting to about 30 days and going back out. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you could sponsor more than one person. And I was like, well, it just depends on kind of where they're at. I said, I've seen people that, they're sponsoring 30 guys and it turns into some like crazed thing where the guys are coming to do yard work at the guy's house and they're wearing uniforms to meetings. Right. And it's like, that's the sphere, like, that's the extreme end of what you're talking about, right? When we get this, now we're just going to, create our own little cult of minions. And so I think now it's just awareness around it. But I think that like, again, it gets down to kind of that core basic of just maintaining honesty and authenticity in myself and my relationships and never believing that like I have anything figured out. I really don't. Like, one of the things I know Mary said this and I hear other people say it too, is that like the longer I stick around, the less I know.
That's what's so funny. That's the lot. There's a lot of truth to that. Now that I'm in advanced years here in the program, it's like I have a lot less to say actually than I did when I was a 5-year-old. The guy from Anaheim is calling again. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. Hello.
Hello.
I gotcha. Anaheim, California. How you doing?
Bob, alcoholic.
Bob.
My sobriety date's 9/27/97. I've been listening. I want to thank Jeff for your share. I'm grateful. I put down in the chat that one of my favorite episodes is deprogramming. And I go to regular brick and mortar meetings here now, and it's I've always loved your secular episodes. There's no real question. I'm just grateful. I think the time on my phone is different than what I'm talking, but I'm really just grateful that I finally was able to talk to you, all of you, because I've been listening to you for a few years now.
Well, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate that. And I always love hearing from.
My favorite one is the deprogramming episode. I used, when it was lockdown, I used to listen to it constantly because I love it. It's great.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, the
thank you, Jeff.
Take care. The deprogramming was pretty popular.
I'll have to look that one up.
It was one of the John Huey episodes. So,
oh right, John Huey. Yeah. John Huey is our sort of angry atheist in the secular world.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes. And so what I wanted to ask you, Jeff, was how did you, when you first came to secular or heard about a secular meeting and you went, how did you feel? Like, what is it about the secular, talk a little bit more about that, how you feel.
I love that. The first meeting, I was unsure whether I was going to come to a meeting where it was like a bunch of pagans and like Satanists that were like, what was going to be there, which is hysterical, right? But not because...
Well, pagans and Satanists are kind of two different things too. So
100%. 100%. Oh yeah, no, I know that.
Right, but this is what you were thinking, right?
Yeah. Like, so I found, contemporary investigation, and then I get there, and it's like, I see people like you there, and Mary A, and like Sanan, and like all these incredible people that are really a lot like me in the sense that, it was just a freer meeting in my mind, to be honest with you. The shares were a little more open and honest because I felt like people weren't trying to be fearful of upsetting someone by saying something that would be,
inappropriate.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So you weren't having to parrot to get the good eyeball rolls. You weren't. Yeah. You didn't always have to read the temperature in the room about
Seriously.
what you said. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I don't know that those two things are necessarily direct. I mean, they're obviously related in some way, right? The fact that it's a secular meeting and that's the feeling. But, to me, that's how it should feel in every room I go in.
Yes, I agree 100% with that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing if we're not, like, I don't know. What are we doing?
You mentioned something that I hear more and more that I swear to God, when I was first starting out in the 80s, I never heard, but people talking about a specific deity that you need to believe in, and in meetings that you just never ever heard that. That would be considered so wrong to do, so inappropriate. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, it seems to be happening with more frequency today, and people seem to think it's okay to do that. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either at all.
Because it is supposed to be, it's supposed to be as inclusive as possible for everybody. And when you are in a room like that, you're really in a public space with other people from different walks of life. And, it's great to have your own personal beliefs, but, it's the need to express those kind of influences the rest of the environment in that meeting. Makes someone feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not that religion, so I can't participate. It's really kind of dangerous.
I think you're right. It's super dangerous. And I wish we treated that as we do like somebody talking politics in the room.
Yes,
really
it's the same thing, right? Like if somebody starts talking about politics, like we shut that down.
What about the groups that get so upset if you talk about something other than drinking?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they make this one important, but that does seem to happen more often now.
Yeah, I think that's real. I don't know why. That seems odd and like kind of the wrong way it's tilting to me. It's really funny that what you just brought up about talking about something other than drinking in the rooms is, I had a buddy celebrate 9 years on Monday night, and after the meeting, a few of us were talking like we do, and him and I were sharing with a guy who's got like a year and a half about the fact that, you know, alcohol was always the catalyst for me. But realistically, if I were to look back in my case history, drugs were as much of a problem. And when both of us came in, particularly for me in 2006, there was definitely like, you didn't talk about
Drugs.
anything besides, you didn't talk about drugs. And
Right.
the guy who's got a year and a half was like, oh, I've never experienced that. Like, it's always been a very forgiving, open environment in that regard to me. And I was like, wow, you know, it's funny just how the timeline kind of shifts. And I don't know why, particularly based on the fact that I think as a society, we're probably less religious now than we have been at any time in our history, why the rooms are starting to turn to
Right.
that. I don't know.
I think it has to do with also the political environment, that the culture influences everything. But also, in Savannah, we have 5 secular meetings a week. And that is very unusual because there are parts of the country that have 1 in the entire state or 2 in the entire country, like in Scotland. And so I find there is a need for secular meetings and a secular viewpoint, or there wouldn't be that many people, like 40 people on Sundays, coming to a meeting in the park. To
Amen.
have 5 in one small town of like 300,000 people, Savannah,
Oh, yeah.
Georgia, says a lot about the value and the need.
100%. And I think too, like, not to lean in too hard to this, but I work in SUD treatment, and what is one of the biggest blockers for people coming into the rooms?
God.
It's every time.
Every time.
It's so if we can have a safe place where that's not going to be an issue. I have watched people come into the rooms and then grow through the fellowship as a result of that entry point that would
100%.
never have come otherwise.
100%.
And like, that's what we're doing here.
That is what we're doing here. Right.
So like that alone to me is, this needs to be everywhere because it's going to save lives. There's no question.
No question whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm so glad I had a place to land when I had to disconnect from my home group. And I stood and I believed in AA, and I had found secular, and I just said, I'm going to do a meeting. If I'm the only one here, then so be it. But I believed enough in the power of the love and the inclusiveness of what AA is supposed to be that I just stood my ground, and look what happened.
Amen.
Yeah, you guys
it's
have
so
a great
cool.
community there.
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
so I encourage people listening, if there's not one in your area, just start one and stay there and see what happens. And I know Chris M is doing that in South Georgia, and it's just a matter of time. I think the lockdown and COVID with people going on Zoom has expanded our community greatly. And that has helped a lot. So I really appreciate that when you came. I knew you came from MC to our group, and I was happy to see y'all and happy to get to know you, and just happy that you stepped out to find something different and didn't do contempt prior to investigation, or I wouldn't know you as a friend. So I appreciate
Amen.
that. Yeah.
I'm grateful you said that. I'm so grateful you are here. Because I would say that, not to toot your horn, but you really have been the catalyst behind growing this meeting to 40 to 50 people every Sunday in the park.
Wow.
It's amazing.
It is.
And it's not the only one anymore, which is so cool.
It's great. I love it. I love it that people feel so empowered they want to start their own group or their own meeting.
Yeah.
Because they need more than one a week. Yeah. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
One thing, Jeff, you mentioned something that that I could identify with a lot, but you unfortunately, you've gone through the grief process in sobriety, and I did too. And when it hit me for the first time, I think I was 10 years sober, and my father had died, and it was completely unexpected. And when I was going into this grief thing, I'd been through grief in my drinking years, and now I'm doing it sober. And I'm thinking, I've got it handled this time. I've got it handled. I know exactly how I'm going to take care of this. And I couldn't. I went crazy. I was crazy anyway. And I came out of that experience thinking to myself, well, you know what? You can't, there's no way of controlling grief. I don't think. It's going to take its own course. And in a way, it was healing. Sometimes it just come over in waves,
Yes.
And it would be painful, but it was a healing, natural process almost. What was your experience with that? Was it similar?
Well, you just really said it beautifully there. That is the deal, right? It's not there's no, I don't know if I believe 5 stages of grief or any of that stuff. It's almost like a living entity that is just kind of with you, and it vacillates, right? And I think just being, it's like anything, right? The circumstance doesn't dictate my internal condition. So like there
Right.
are days when that sadness overwhelms and I have to cry some tears, and that's okay. Like that's fine. And then there are days where I laugh about some dumb joke he said, or like when he farted on vacation in front of like 100 people at Disney World.
Right.
Do you know? And like that's all part of it. So I think you said it great. And like it's just not giving myself and grief permission to exist as it's going to. And not making dictates based upon like ideas I have around it. I'm supposed to do this or that,
Yeah. So, I hope that, if, when I have to deal with grief again, that I will understand that just to let go and let it happen, because I was really trying to get things under control with thing, and it just wasn't going to work for me like that. But, it's great to have some tools though. It's great to have people to talk to, and it's great to have kind of a path to follow. And it's great to be able to learn something from whatever I do, whether it works or doesn't work. During those drinking years, especially when I was dealing with that kind of stuff during my drinking years, there was no learning going on whatsoever. There was no growth. It was just
that's a really good point, right? Yeah. I mean, we don't grow. Yeah. That's a beautiful gift of recovery, right? Is growing through challenges, right? Like the fact that we're going to fully experience emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, every aspect of our lives, well, then we're going to be able to have memories formed and build coping skills and learn and grow and, ascend as we're supposed to, right? And I know, like, I just reflect back on how long I spent running as fast as I could from any piece of that process.
Yes.
How scary it was to think that was even, there's no way.
Yeah.
But it's great to do it. And I think, I don't know why I thought of it when you were just talking there, John, but I think about like, I can't do this life alone.
right.
And I really have learned and it was a hard fought lesson because I want to do it all myself, but to like create a fellowship of people that I talk to openly and honestly on a regular basis has been so beneficial to me, because now I'm at this place where like, if I'm not at home group, somebody sends me a text message. Why weren't you there? Like if a guy texts me or calls me and I don't call him back that day, then the next day he's going to call again and say, hey, what's going on?
Yes.
And I need that.
Yes.
And so like we have to build that, right? Like we have to make ourselves available to allow that to happen, because I know for me, like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that has been such a plus in my life to like have some accountability through not just myself.
Absolutely. I even tell people, and my sponsor and my close sponsees, if you see me doing these things, that's a red flag, and call me on it. Like this is the slippery slope that looks like mine. I might look good
That's
on
awesome.
the outside, but it's a slippery slope. And
That's
so if
awesome.
I'm doing any of this, I need you to call me on it, because I'm really good at bullshitting myself.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's right. Like take it. Yes. That's awesome. Because then it's like you have given them spiritual permission to hold you accountable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also like sponsoring because it holds me accountable to be a good example for my sponsees. So I don't want to fuck up and let them see me fuck up. So it keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Amen. And that's what I think about
Yes.
too. Like in the morning, if I don't do my stuff, if I don't meditate and get centered, and like before I go about, one of my sponsees is going to text me at 10:30 in the morning, and I'm going to tell him to go F himself, because like I'm not okay. Right. So like
Yes.
it's all part of that process of like building in fail safes and accountability so I can be the person I want to be.
Yes. And one of the benefits of recovery is when you're sober, you're just a good example to other people, not you, but all of us, instead of a cautionary tale. And so just being sober is a good example, and that can help other people by just
Amen.
being sober, period, whether you try to do anything or not.
Yep.
That's so real. Yeah. I had a guy ask me permission he was like, is it okay if I give your number to one of my sponsees? He's kind of going through the situation where he's got some charges pending and he doesn't know what's going to happen. And I know what you've been through and would you be willing to talk to him? I was like, yes, that's like the greatest gift you can give me is like, make my junk useful to someone else. Please. It changes the whole perspective on it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you once again. I think our time is up. I really appreciate you coming on here. Mary, thanks for bringing him on. And thank you for being here. And thank everybody out there, the those of you who called in, those of you who were participating in the live chat. I really appreciate it. So
thanks, Jeff.
We'll say goodbye.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, John.
Bye.